Well, Donny, just before we even get started, I'm noticing a great drum set in the background. I'm going to assume that's yours and you play.
It is mine, and I do play. And during COVID, I taught my son how to play, so he's now playing as well.
That's amazing. Oh,
Yeah, he just
wow.
started at School of Rock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's a proud moment and, amazing to even use the time, especially, being home together. So incredible.
yeah. Um, I guess we're waiting for Andrea to join. Maybe I'll just take a few moments to tell the audience what Brave is, and then once Andrea joins, we can jump right into her. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay. So, in case you're not familiar with the Brave browser, we are a browser that protects users' privacy. So, when you're using other browsers like Chrome specifically, it's big tech and they're watching everything that you're doing. And when you're using Brave, you're completely anonymous. All of your browsing, all your searches, everything that you do in the browser is private. I joined the company 2 years ago and we had 5 million users using Brave. And now we have just under 40 million users using the browser. Oh, here's Andrea. Andrea, I'm just telling people about Brave before we jump into all about you.
Wonderful.
And specifically with Brave, it blocks all trackers and third-party cookies. And when you do that, it blocks all of the programmatic ads, display ads in YouTube. And so we have a very interesting model where users can opt in to seeing advertising as opposed to just getting it thrown at them. And if they opt in, they can get rewarded for their attention. So they can make anywhere from, $5 to $10 a month when they actually see our ads. And our ads that we sell are push notifications and homepage takeovers and something called Brave News, which is like a native ad unit. And we pay consumers with our basic attention token, which is a cryptocurrency. And NFTs and crypto is becoming more and more in the spotlight. Less blockchain and advertising, I would say, but more about ways that brands are using NFTs and cryptocurrencies. And so we're an example of a way that a brand can get involved in that market because 75% of our 40 million users have traded some type of cryptocurrency. And the last thing I'll share is that this audience that's growing by 2 million users a month is an audience that you can't really reach with programmatic advertising or with YouTube ads because they don't see them because we block all of it. So really to reach this audience, you have to use one of our ad units. So enough about Brave, but I did want to tell the audience about it. We welcome Andrea to the show or to the to the day. Hi, Andrea.
Hey, Donny, good to see you.
Good to see you again. We connected yesterday. So we're going to do something a little bit special. I run a podcast called The Brave Marketer. And The Brave Marketer is all about interviewing people that have done something unique in their career where they took a risk and it's paid off for them. So what I would like to do today is we're actually going to record this, for Brand Innovators, but also for the podcast. And we're going to stream it on as a podcast as well. And so why don't we start with, you, Andrea, and your career, how you kind of came up into the position that you're at. Let's talk about Campari. Let's talk about, your company and the marketing department. And then we'll get into some Brave marketing moments and more the industry as a whole. So why don't you start by just telling the audience about yourself, Andrea?
All right, will do. Well, wonderful to be here. Nice to see everybody and participate in both this Brand Innovators podcast as well as the Brave Marketer. So I've been in marketing for over 20 years. I'm originally from Canada. I started out up there, mostly in beverage alcohol for most of my career. So I think the most notable experiences began with Bacardi. Then I moved over to Diageo, and then I transferred with them from Canada down to the US. And I think that was maybe one of my experiences where I made a different brave decision, but we can get into that later. Spent over 12 years there at Diageo, and then I decided to move over to work with Sean Combs, leading his wine and spirits business, working back with Diageo. So sort of saw two sides of a partnership and managed it from two different angles, which was really, really interesting in terms of growing my perspective. From there, in all honesty, my husband was not a big fan of the West Coast because we moved out to LA for that, which was something I was really looking forward to doing. But we decided to move back to New York as a diehard New Yorker. And for that adventure, I decided to try a new experience. And that's when I started with LVMH and Moët Hennessy, which was really interesting. I was leading their marketing centers of excellence across the full portfolio for the US. So entertainment marketing, media, digital, which included marketing innovation and CRM, as well as e-commerce. But then about a year and a half ago, I got the opportunity to lead the entire marketing group at Campari Group US, or Campari America. So we have over 30 different brands here in the US. So ranging from what most of you might know when you hear the words Campari. So Campari, Aperol, the Apparel Spritz, Grand Marnier, it's one of our brands. We have a variety of Amari or Amaro brands. In addition to some whiskeys and some rums, as well as white spirits. So we have Appleton Estate, Wray and Nephew, so some of the top rums from Jamaica, as well as Wild Turkey, which has a variety of different types of products, and bourbon and rye, as well as Long Branch, which we co-created with Matthew McConaughey, with the Russell family, who are one of the oldest distilling families in the US. That created Wild Turkey, as well as Long Branch, and one of that generational family members worked closely with Matthew to create Long Branch. We also have Russell's Reserve. I move over to the white spirits. We have Sky Vodka, which we recently repositioned this past year, new packaging, new liquid. So it was a really exciting project to support and be a part of. And from a Mexican spirits perspective, we have Espolón Tequila, who some of you may have heard about. It's one of the faster growing tequilas in what is one of the fastest growing categories within our industry, as well as Cabo Wabo, which was initially created with Sammy Hagar, Mezcal, Montelobos, and Ancho Reyes, and a chili liqueur. I did not get all of them, but I tried to hit some of the high points so that you guys had some reference points as to when we say Campari America, it really references this broad group of beverages.
That's amazing. And as far as the marketing department goes, are there specific brand managers on each one of those brands? Like, how do you handle marketing?
Yeah, we have portfolio groups. So there's a director that leads each of the European icons, which would encompass Grand Marnier and all of our Italian icons. We have someone who leads our dark spirits business. So there's a variety of senior brand managers, associate brand managers, led by a director in each of those portfolios. And then another white spirits portfolio, which would be the Mexican spirits and the vodkas.
And do they each have their own agency? Do you use the same agency?
We use a variety of different agencies. So we are really big on ensuring we have the right partners that understand the brands, understands the look and feel and tone to really help us bring them to life in the strongest way. But in addition to those brand leads, we also have a new digital team that we've recently created to help us navigate in this rapidly evolving marketplace and society that we live in. So we've recently brought on a new head of digital and media, and then underneath him there's a media manager and 3 digital engagement managers that each specialize in a different area. So social media, CRM, or influencer.
Got it. And then your role within the whole org, how do you fit in?
So I lead the marketing team. So those teams all lead up into me. And then I sit on the executive team for Campari America, along with the head of sales and the head of customer and channel marketing, supply chain, legal, reporting into the CEO for the US.
That's great. And what's the most exciting thing you're working on right now?
Oh my goodness. You want me to choose between my children, Donny?
Well, you can have multiple. You don't have to choose one thing.
Oh my goodness. There is so much exciting stuff happening right now. So on Campari in September, we had Negroni Week for the 9th year. So next year we'll be going into our 10th year of Negroni Week. Negroni Week is it's a partnership we have with Imbibe, and we work with the bartender and the hospitality community to raise funds for a variety of different charitable charities. So this past year, we're still making the tallies, but it's almost up to 400,000 is the last I heard. I'm sure that will continue to grow as they continue to count all the contributions from the hospitality industry as well as from consumers. But that drink, as I'm sure you're aware of, has really taken off and got quite the following over the last, let's say, 5 years. And Campari is integral. We like to call it the heart of the Negroni. So that just happened in September, which was really exciting. We also partnered with the New York Film Festival. It was in its 59th year. It's our 3rd year of partnering with them. So we sponsor opening night. We work really closely with them throughout the festival. And we recently, it's streaming currently on Amazon Prime, but we recently showcased and opened our showing at the festival called Fellini Forward. So Campari has a really rich history with the arts as a patron of the arts over many years, supporting many different sides of that from a director perspective and an actor perspective and a producer perspective. And this year we decided we wanted to try something really interesting, marrying our creative side with innovation and technology. So it's actually an exploration using AI, some of the most advanced forms of AI, to explore the creative genius of Federico Fellini. So we partnered with a key member of his family who was integral to the production. And we explored what if we used AI and we input a variety of all of Federico Fellini's work, what would it tell us? How would it tell us to make a film based on all of those inputs? So it's a really, really fascinating documentary, which I would encourage you to check out on Amazon Prime, called Fellini Forward. But I think that's a really interesting example of how Campari continues to support creativity, continues to support innovation, and is continuing trying to sort of advance that conversation as we explore the limits or the lack thereof of how technology will continue to be a key part of our lives from an entertainment perspective.
Yeah.
Then on Apparel, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and you guys are creating content too. I did a search on YouTube and I saw like a 8-minute movie with this female that was in Europe. So it seems like you're creating, not just commercials, but real content.
Yes. So that has actually been what Campari has done under a campaign called Red Diary series for the last, I'm going to get the number wrong, but at least 5, maybe 7 years. And each year we've produced a piece of content, working with renowned directors from all over the world. It's important to us to continue to support that art form and continue to be a part of that community. So that's something we take a lot of great pride in.
Yeah,
so
and the music in that is like so good. Like it's like I don't know who that artist was, but like there's the band in it, and the music and the songs are great.
Oh, good. I'm glad you clearly memorable, which is one of the key parts of it.
Yes, it was.
And then I think with Apparel, hopefully you and your audiences are familiar with the Apparel Spritz. I think that's been something that has been quite the phenomena over the last, let's say, 3-5 years as well. So we've just come off like the high summer season, but we're working really hard so that people are aware of all the other times you can also enjoy Apparel. So this is National Pizza Month, October. So we have a partnership with Kevin Jonas, who's actually been bringing to life, how he enjoys Apparel Spritz, as it is Italy's #1 cocktail, and it's one of his favorites. So he's been trying to showcase and bring that to life. We have Katie Lee, who's going to be making pizzas and as part of her 40th birthday coming up shortly. So we're also really excited about how we continue to bring Italian culture to the US, and we find interesting ways that for consumers to make it their own in the right relevant occasions. And at the end of the day, Apparel Spritz is really about bringing joy to moments of togetherness. And I think you can see that when in the summertime and when you see people ordering it, it genuinely brings a smile to people's face. I know that sounds like a lot of marketing talk, but it's really what I observe. And my experience usually when I'm having it out on a patio during the summer season, and I'm enjoying being able to extend that into the fall. So we're looking forward for more people to be able to extend that feeling of joy and happiness together with their friends and Apparel Spritz as well.
It's awesome. So as I mentioned at the top of the interview, brave marketers, they take risks. It pays off. So if you could choose kind of one story from your career for your time at Campari, what would be that brave marketing moment for you?
I'm going to choose a moment in my career
Great.
To talk about for this. It's funny, I was thinking about this earlier when I was going back through the different marketing experiences. I don't feel like a lot of them were brave because I tend to have a fearless nature typically. So as long as it's grounded in some kind of cultural insight, cultural trend, and consumer sentiment and insight, it just feels like the right thing to do. And then it's about how you manage your stakeholders and the organization and your teams in terms of bringing that vision to life. But when I think about my career, this one feels probably like the riskier thing. So as I mentioned to you earlier, I was at Diageo for quite a number of years, around 12 years. And then I made the choice to leave what had been a really rewarding experience proactively. And most people thought I was absolutely nuts because I chose to leave to go join a celebrity working for Sean Combs, who was one of our partners, who currently is one of Diageo's partners. But it's a very, very different experience, right? You're going from very traditional matrix corporate America to the other end of the pendulum, right?
Yeah,
Entrepreneurial,
working for a guy.
agile, heavy creative visionary. And so that was probably the bravest risk I took in my career. You know, I never even really thought about leaving Diageo ever. I was very happy there, growing consistently at a variety of different regional, global, local roles, all very fulfilling. And in retrospect, I'm really glad that I did. It just lends a whole other perspective to how you look at society, to how you look at brand building. It took me right into culture, right? I mean, at a certain point, you're in meetings and boardrooms and PowerPoint a lot. And I was missing being a part of culture. And I got that. I swung back hard. And I think it gave me a big appreciation for how you build really successful partnerships with people and organizations that live and breathe and create culture, which I think is actually quite the skill, in our industry, figuring out who those right partnerships are, how you successfully build authentic ones. So really make your selection process, your vetting process, management of that. And it gave a whole new meaning to the word agile. I will tell you that. So your expectations of, you make the impossible possible. So I think that your expectations change a little bit.
Right. I realized that he was a partner of Diageo, but how did the opportunity actually come about for you?
I was starting to travel quite a bit to California. So personally, I wanted to move there. I had sort of made that decision, and I had thought to myself, I hadn't thought about wanting to leave Diageo. Honestly, I had to get to the point where, am I going to not do something I want to do in my personal life because the company doesn't have an office or a role for me there? And it was when I asked myself that question that I said, no, absolutely not. I want to move to California. I want that experience. So I'm going to go get that. And so I was openly speaking with the company about it, as well as with, I was working on his business at the time at Diageo. So I mentioned it to him and his team, and that's how it came about. They pretty much said, oh, that's interesting. If that's something you're looking for, you could work out of LA for us and continue to work on these great brands and just the other side of the business.
That's great.
So.
That's amazing. So talk to me about where you think marketing or advertising is going. If you were to pick some things that were like, okay, that was so the past 10 years. And as I look forward, this is where it's going the next 10 years. Does something come up in your mind?
Listen, this is an expected answer. There's two things that come immediately to my mind. So the first is understanding the digital landscape. I think that that's really, really critical and important as a marketer today. When you think of in the frame you gave me, right? Last 10 years, next 10 years.
Yep.
I mean, the transition to how you engage digitally, how you engage in a hybrid model, that is only accelerating at a very, very quick pace. So for me, that's a really, really big one that I'm very focused on, and that my teams are really focused on. The other one is around sort of like experiences. I think we've always been so siloed, I think, as a industry in general, about how we think about different disciplines within marketing. And really now everything needs to be seamless and frictionless. So we know we need experts to help us in different parts of that consumer customer experience coming to life. But figuring out how we really connect that as seamlessly as possible. It's so easy for me to sit here and say, it is so hard to actually really do that well. So really figuring out how to crack seamless experiences that give you just those right messages and just that right content at just that right time and just that right place. that to me is the magic that we all continue to strive for. But it still remains slightly elusive.
Yeah. And when you say experiences, are you talking about in-person events, or are you talking about online ads, or what do you think of when you talk about experiences?
It encompasses all of that for me. I think we really have to think about when we engage consumers, that is an experience. And now experiences aren't just live and in person. That's typically how we thought about it. Now people have really robust experiences on their phone. They have really robust experiences, with multiple different screens. When you're watching something on the TV and you have your phone and you have your iPad. So to me, those are all moments of that you're experiencing our brand. So how are we being as engaging as possible in those? And just the context of experiences has just evolved so considerably. Those in-person events are also digital moments as well, right? So people are in those live moments on their phones, or they're also streaming it. And some people are experiencing it live. So that whole ecosystem, that's why I look at it holistically. It's online and offline. It's all, we need to consider them really holistically and how do we optimize our resources from an investment perspective, a human resource perspective, and make the right choices about which parts of that experience are the most important, which will be most impactful, where do we have the most relevance, what makes sense for us to invest a little bit more heavily in because the consumer will be more engaged. So.
And you mentioned, when I was asking about the different org and departments, you mentioned there was like a digital group.
Yes.
But now we're talking about making sure everything is holistic. So
Yes.
how does that work when you have a specific digital group, but everything must be holistic?
Oh, it's called the collaboration model, Donny.
I always see a big whiteboard with the biggest, like the collaboration model, and there's all these different sections of it.
We talk about it all the time because I don't believe like one person doesn't get everything done. That's just not how the world works anymore. Yeah. It's impossible. It is impossible for one person.
So you don't do all the marketing all yourself?
Yeah. And to know enough about how to optimize all the different parts of that experience requires different levels of expertise now. Yeah. So I really preach collaboration. I'm all about to me, the digital group, it's part of the marketing team. So we're all the marketing team, and they should feel like an extension of the brand teams in those specific areas. So they're like consultants, but also executors when it comes to their areas of expertise. So, and they're involved from the beginning, right? Like they're involved at the beginning so they can help shape how a program comes to life, feeding in insights from these key areas that maybe not everybody has the same type of experience with, but it's working closely together. So we spend a lot of time outlining, the formal ways of working documents, taking each task, who's the R, who's the A, who's the C, who's the I. So all that's been done. But at the end of the day, it's about how people, making sure we embrace, the added level of knowledge and expertise coming into the team, and collaboratively having the same vision of wanting to have the biggest impact with whatever program we're talking about, on whichever brand we're talking about, and sort of leaving some ego at the door, and everyone focusing on really working together to get it done. I know it sounds very kumbaya, but I strongly believe in this model. I've seen it work. I've been a part of it working, and that's what we're doing now.
Yeah. We have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to just say if anybody has any questions, this is the part where we're doing audience Q&A. So just type in your questions, but as people type in, we can continue chatting. And I'm going to actually go back to one of my questions and just dig a little bit deeper, push back a little bit. You had said past 10 years, digital was important, but now it's even more important. Yeah. As you look at different tactics, maybe you were using at Diageo, maybe even going back.
Yeah.
Like, is there stuff that you just don't use anymore? Like, is there something where in our marketing world, like it's changed? Like you used to be really into email, but you're not using it as much, or we were doing billboards and we're not doing it. I don't know. I'm just making it up.
I don't know if there's something that we just don't do anymore, but I think what's changed is how we use them has definitely changed. Like
Okay.
one of the examples you gave made me think of that, like billboards. I mean, we're very strategic about how we use out of home today versus how definitely versus how we used it 10 years ago. Right? Like 10 years ago, it was very much like marquee, must be here, critical. And now it's a little bit more, there's some of that, but I think it's a little bit less of that big stature, and sometimes more about like specific moments and occasions and experiences, that we're looking to have holistic activations around. And I think we're a little bit more strategic, and the reasons as to why we use things has changed. That's helpful.
Got it. Yeah. And we have a question coming in about Pinterest. Can you talk about your activations on Pinterest?
Yes, Pinterest is really interesting. We can do a lot more there. I think we've talked about that as a team. Pinterest is an interesting place where consumers are very interested in looking at different cocktails. So it's a place to be focused on an occasion. So what's the occasion? Birthdays, weddings, celebrations, different cultural or seasonal moments, and really focused on bringing to life different types of cocktail occasions. So I think, there was the recent big espresso martini trend that came up on Pinterest. So I think we've seen Frangelico is one of the brands I didn't mention earlier that we have. And I think we've benefited quite a bit from that. Frangelico is one of the key ingredients in making the most delicious espresso martini. So I think it helps create trends that we benefit from. And then when we see that, we like to work with them to obviously optimize and drive more engagement and excitement behind it.
Got it. So we have a fun question, which are, what are 1 to 2 of your favorite fall cocktails made with your brands?
I love Spagliato Negroni. My goodness, I just butchered that. The Negroni Spagliato. So that means mistake in Italian, and it's a twist on your typical Negroni. So your typical Negroni is equal parts Campari, sweet vermouth, and gin. The Spagliato changes the gin for Prosecco. So it's Campari, Prosecco, and sweet vermouth. So that's definitely one of my favorites. Oh gosh, what's my other one? It's going to be really funny, but my other fall favorite is the Apparel Spritz. I'm not lying to you. That is the other one that I am still drinking. And I drink it through until the holiday season, to be honest with you, when I switch to Campari and soda, because I enjoy the red holiday drink, it's very simple to make, with the Campari soda and then the orange slice. Those are my favorite fall cocktails. I know many would say the whiskeys. We have so many great whiskeys. Long Branch over ice would be another one I would just throw out there.
I'll ask you a very aspirational marketing question.
Okay.
If you had an unlimited marketing budget, what would you do with it? What are some of the things that you think about in the room and you're like, I'd love to do this, but we just don't have the budget?
I would look at creating some really exciting partnerships in the entertainment marketing world. So partnering with some key properties that would help us bring to life the key occasion at the right moment, at the right time with our brands. I would do that. That's what I would do. That's what I really want to do a lot more of with our brands.
Got it. And from an organizational standpoint, any challenges that come up within, your company? Sometimes you talk to marketers that work for very, very large companies and they talk about the bureaucracy or they just, they can't get things done. It sounds like you guys have been pretty nimble in getting stuff done, but any challenges that come up?
Challenges. I mean, I would just reiterate what you said. I mean, I think I've been really impressed with how agile we are able to be in terms of responding to different changes happening. Challenges. I think fully transparently, I think, we're part of a global company. So, we have to make sure that we are doing a really good job of educating our global counterparts about the challenges that we face in the US so that everybody understands why we want to go in certain directions. I think that's something that we spend time on making sure everyone's really clear on why we want to go in a certain way. Because people operate from different contexts based on, what their experiences have been to date.
Got it. I'll ask you a question that, I talked about Brave in the beginning and that we're really focused on online privacy. We're a privacy browser.
Yeah.
How are you guys thinking about privacy at Campari?
Well, we think we 100% respect our consumers' privacy. So I think we want to ensure consumers have a positive, voluntary interaction with our brands and our products. I think, we're more at the beginning side of our sort of digital journey. So I think we're evaluating different partners in terms of how we ensure we can operate as effectively as possible for our customer base and for the organization. But we take that very seriously. It's something that we're actively evaluating and looking at to ensure that we are showing up in the most responsible way to consumers that want to have interactions and engagements with us.
Got it. Emily Burge has a question. She asks, what's a good example of how your field marketing org has translated larger brand campaigns into local activations and partnerships?
Yeah, we have a whole section of our sales teams that are focused on just that around the country. So they do an amazing job of taking some of the larger scale programs that we have and bringing them to life locally, trying to think of what a very specific local activation would be. I can't think of one specific one, but I know that we're looking at like local film opportunities, building off Campari. Trying to think of what another one would be. Oh, well, with Apparel Spritz and Pizza, I know we're doing a lot of work from a regional perspective of partnering with local pizza organizations or gourmet pizza organizations and facilitating being able to deliver Aperol and pizza together. So they're taking that concept that we're doing at a very high level and really executing it very, very strongly at a local level. Oh, gosh.
It's okay. I have one last question for you.
Okay.
We have to be done by 3:05, so about 60 seconds left.
Okay.
So the whole season for the Brave Marketers all been about challenger brands.
Okay.
Would you consider Campari a challenger brand?
I would consider some of our brands challenger brands, 100%. Yes, where we're not the number one in the category. So yes, I would.
And do you do things different? Okay, so if you're the number one in the category, how does the marketing change versus you being a challenger brand in the category?
Okay, so being a challenger brand, I think there's a few different things. Typically, there's less investment associated with a challenger brand than with the number one, just based on the amount of value you're generating and the amount of reinvestment you're able to make. So the biggest difference, in my opinion, is like, how are you more scrappy and savvy in terms of how you're choosing to engage your consumer? First of all, how are you finding them and how are you engaging them in a more cost-effective way so you can reach as many as possible and have an even stronger impact than your number one. But to me, that's the big mindset shift. Like, how can you be scrappier than the big budgets? Because that's the big difference between number one and number two. So I also think you have to focus more and prioritize more. You can't do everything. You can't win every battle. So your insights around your consumer and identifying your passion points and going hard after one or two of those. So you have the impact there, even though it's not going to be all year long, like perhaps the number one would have. Those are just a very few high level examples in the last, 60 seconds that I took too long on.
No, you're totally perfect. That concludes our interview. Thank you so much, Andrea. This was great meeting you the past couple of days, and hopefully the audience enjoyed it.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Donny. And thank you so much, Brand Innovators.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Donny. Next up, please welcome Lindsey Horrigan. Lindsey serves as a global head consumer marketing and general